when I was in high school, our band Bingo Fridays played at a spot called Harper's Ferry, which is now called Brighton Music Hall, for the WBCN Battle of the High School Bands, which was essentially the legendary Rock and Roll Rumble Battle of the Bands junior version. It was like the light version. I think it was even during the day. It was daytime at Harper's Ferry. And we either won or got second place, but however way it worked out, we were given some scholarship money towards some Berkeley summer camps. And that was my first time on the Berkeley campus. I attended the production weekend one summer when I was in high school because we won these scholarships. I had at the time, I think I was using my mom's laptop and a copy of GarageBand and maybe a 2-channel interface that was my brother's to be able to try to learn how to record music. And I had a very limited setup, and I was starting to learn more and thinking about getting an interface and some speakers and building out my first home recording system. And when you're young, you think that equipment is really what matters. And once you get all of that magical equipment, you'll be able to make all of that magical music. So I was at one of the clinics at that production weekend, and there was an amazing engineer who I can't remember the name of, but he was given a great lecture about recording and how technology allows us to edit things, but that there's a lot of these challenges that come from that because we don't just record like we used to. We now record everything in little snippets and we edit it all together. He was talking about the pros and cons of that, and I specifically remember him saying that the undo button is one of the most dangerous things to ever happen in recorded music because all of a sudden, every decision you make, you can undo. Whereas in the past, with tape, if you did something to the master tape, it was done. You couldn't go back from that. So I said to him afterwards, this is what I have access to. I've got a basic laptop and some GarageBand software, and I think I had maybe one microphone and an input for my guitar. And I said, what do I need to get to be able to make something professional and legitimate? And I'll never forget what he said to me was, well, let me explain it to you with an analogy. We're here on the Berkeley campus, and North Station is a couple miles away. If I were to use my rig in my studio would be the equivalent of me driving a Ferrari from the Berkeley campus to North Station. And what you've got right now is a bicycle. But the point is, we're just getting from point A to point B. He said, whether you're taking a bicycle or a Ferrari, you're just going from Berkeley to North Station. And it's the same with making music. It doesn't matter which tools you're using, you're just trying to get from point A to point B. Point A being that you have an idea for a song, point B that you've created your song. And I was probably 16 or 17, and he really was driving the point home that it's not about the equipment, it's about knowing where you want to go and getting it done. So today, on episode 4 of Earth Tones, we are talking about In Defense of Hi-Fi. Lo-fi is all the rage, so I figured somebody's got to stick up for hi-fi. But first, a sound from our beautiful Earth. A lovely sound. That is a summer thunderstorm. I recorded that yesterday here at the studio. That is a police siren going by, the thunder, and you can hear just the incessant hum of those air conditioners. Now, I'm lucky in this room, we're far enough away from them, but in the other room, especially when you open the window, that's the sound of summer right there, air conditioners. So, before we get into it, a little bit of old news. I stuck my hand in the stack of magazines and I pulled out Guitar Player March 2020. Again, coming from the time that we do not discuss, that which happened in March 2020 that we will never refer to directly by name. This Green Day, on the cover of Guitar Player magazine in March 2020, they released an album called Father of All MFers. And it was a big departure for Green Day. It's a pretty cool record. I had never heard it, and I was reading this article, and in true punk rock spirit, Billy Joe and the gang was like, let's just make whatever record we wanted. And what they made is like a garage dance type of thing. It's kind of like when the Black Keys became a little bit more popular and you had like anthemic rock all of a sudden instead of just stripped down basement blues. It's actually pretty cool. I was reading reviews of it and people were really tearing it apart. I think somebody said that it was the dance rock album they might need but don't want. And I imagine that was a lot of people's reactions to it. But on Spotify, plenty of the songs had in the tens of millions of plays. So either that's how big Green Day is that anybody will listen to it, or people like it. I was checking it out. I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. If a band came out and that was what they sounded like and they weren't known for something else, I think everyone would think that that was a plenty cool enough sound to be. So they were describing it as Motown, rave, and R&B, and that they were just feeling like mixing it up. So Green Day puts out a departure record in 2020. I wonder how we'll listen to that, 10, 20 years from now. I remember when American Idiot came out, and I was like 13 years old, and I felt, oh man, they're really selling out. They're such like a big rock band now, and it's all corporate, and wow, this is nothing like Dookie or Nimrod that I grew up with when I was like 7 years old. And now I look back on it and I think, what was I thinking? They were a huge rock band that was protesting the government. They were on MTV and they were making loud rock and roll about their frustrations with the world and the president. That was pretty legendary. And the fact that they were on MTV able to do that is incredible considering how controversial it was. But good for them. They're always evolving. They've been playing for so long. Love Green Day. So a bit of old news. That was now 5 years ago. So today's main discussion. On Earth Tones, episode 4. We're talking about hi-fi. Now, I don't think anybody needs to make an argument for a lo-fi anymore between the YouTube study beats craze that we all went through listening to hours and hours of lo-fi hip-hop beats, or now what's popular, which is McGee's album, 2-Star in the Dream Police. There are guitar pedals coming out from JHS and all these other companies trying to get this transistor preamp sound. My one comment on that I can't help saying is the point. Okay, here's the thing. When you take something cheap, like an old Tascam Portastudio 4-track cassette deck, and you make something cool with it like McGee has done, it seems like the guitar world then concludes, that was really special and we were sleeping on that the whole time. Let's make that really expensive. Here's the thing. The point that might be better taken is there's plenty of cool, cheap things laying around that you can make interesting music with. I think the McGee record is amazing. It took me a little while to get into it because I didn't understand how to get into it. I was expecting a guitar record, and it's much more of almost like a James Blake, like introspective, cool vibe, soundscape thing. 2-Star in the Dream Police by McGee it's a really cool record. I've now heard it multiple times, but once I got into it, I was like, yeah, it's innovative. It's great music. I like listening to it, but the transistor guitar sound, you can get that from any number of things. I have an old mixer that I've dubbed it the worst maker. You just crank everything up and it sounds kind of terrible, but really cool. If you like that sound, it's the sound of transistor distortion. You can get it from plugging into any number of things. What I think is cool is if you tune your ears to McGee or any of these modern sounds where they're embracing that, start looking around and seeing if there's a piece of gear that's cheap that you can get something cool out of. I think what's most exciting about this time where lo-fi is being accepted and expanded is that we're interested in like sonics, like interesting textural things. And that's good because we can stop thinking that you have to have John Mayer's Dumble rig in order to play interesting music. We certainly don't need to have these ultimate hi-fi level rigs in order to make music. So the lo-fi cassette thing has, of course, always been around. Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska album gets talked about a lot. He apparently tried to make the record again, having cut all the demos on the 4-track cassette, and it didn't have the same vibe as the cassette. That's the legend I've heard anyways. So they put out the cassette version. I know a band that I've played with once before, my friends in Flying Vipers. They make a lot of great music that's just on 4-track cassette. They're a great reggae and dub band. Of course, Elliott Smith. There's been lots of amazing cassette-based artists for a long time. It's not just like a modern innovation. The funny thing is if you talk to the old heads, all the old recording guys, they're so glad to be done with that because they know the limitations. Most people were trying to get hi-fi sounds out of those units, and you can do things like run it at double speed, take the pitch wheel and make it as fast as it can go in order to be able to get the highest fidelity that you can. There's a lot of tricks that people would use to get high fidelity. People wanted to get the highest fidelity sound that they could get. So this episode is in defense of hi-fi. So why am I defending hi-fi? Well, the thing is that I think that lo-fi is really great for being creative because it smooths over a lot of the edges. Things start to sound more like a record as soon as you start working on them because you don't hear the nakedness of all the tracks. You don't hear the sheen. Digital is amazing. It's better for recording accurately than anything that we have, I think anyways. Unless you had like the ultimate analog rig, which is extremely expensive and you have to pay for all this expensive tape. You can get a higher fidelity sound with digital. There's no noise floor like there used to be. There's no hiss. But here's the thing. That hiss also kind of took up space. When you record on cassette, you might find that you're having a lot of fun and you're being creative because the sheen is lost. There is hiss. It's kind of drowning out some of the background noise. Maybe your refrigerator is a little less noticeable because it's just blending in with the basic baseline noise level. So my argument in defense of hi-fi is we want to listen to records on hi-fi rigs. Making records is fun with lo-fi things. Making things out of found objects, recording with a cassette deck, recording with voice memos, all of that is plenty fun. But I'm pretty sure we all want the latest and greatest playback system. We want to be able to hear it in all its glory. Very few people are like, I love vinyl, and what I like the most is that turntable, the Crosley, whichever that company is, that I got from Target. That's the best sounding turntable I've ever had. No way. People don't prefer lo-fi playback. They prefer lo-fi music making. So in defense of hi-fi, what I'll say is there's a lot of things that come from innovation of trying to make things better that trickles down to the rest of the community. We see that in race cars or when a company makes a concept car, they make something that totally can't go to production, but the technology used to make that then goes into our regular consumer products. Or all those as seen on TV products that say that these things were originally designed for NASA. It'll be like a dish soap and they're like, this is astronaut dish soap. That might be true. They might have developed something that was really good in space that now has trickled down to the regular consumer. I think that that is similar within the hi-fi world. The audiophile world is way beyond what the average person is engaging with. People are spending $20,000, $30,000 on a turntable, $100,000 on a set of speakers. Crazy, crazy money to make these perfect systems. You have to have a perfectly tuned room. If you don't, it would be very silly to have a $200,000 set of speakers. But say you have a perfect room, you might have this amazing audiophile system. You're going to hear the music like the musicians and even probably the engineers, never even heard that music. Because like I said, we're trying to make music using whatever is creative. That might be a lo-fi cassette deck, or say you get to a mastering room, you might hear your music for the first time in all of its glory and all of its imperfections. So the thing about hi-fi is that we want to strive towards playback so that we can hear the music as it was intended, or in the case of like classical music, you want to hear it as it was actually performed. So it's immersive and enveloping. And one of the things that has come up recently is Dolby Atmos. Dolby Atmos has gotten a lot of slack. People are getting all up in arms about how it's not a real thing that the average consumer is going to use. I was talking to my friend Will the other day, who is completing a engineering degree at the University of Hartford, and he was saying, I don't believe in Atmos. It doesn't make any sense. Nobody's going to create a room for themselves at home that has speakers on the ceiling and in front of them and behind them and everywhere. And what I was saying was, the thing is that we need to always advocate for immersive music. We need to advocate for people going above and beyond to create these halo environments of musical experience, like the Sphere in Las Vegas, or the Planetarium in Boston, or any given movie theater. The sound is so inspiring. The average musician and the average music listener is not going to invest in writing music for that format or creating a home theater like that. But I do really believe in continuing to have innovation so that those technologies can trickle down to us, so that we do have increased potential for having fun listening to music. So what I'd say is, when we have the opportunity to increase sound quality and production, we should take it in general. Lo-fi is great for being creative. If you're interested in just making music, do not think that you need some crazy rig in order to make music. Make music with whatever you have. It could be a cassette deck. It could be your phone with voice memos. It could be a basic laptop. It could be any number of things. The point is to get from point A to point B. And then also, let's seek out environments where we can appreciate hi-fi. Let's go to the movies and notice a little bit more about the sound. Let's check out the latest Bose system. Let's continue to talk about the environment that your car sounds like. I do think that we should advocate for fidelity. We should email Spotify and say that we want high resolution and we want higher sample rates. We should do all of the things that we can to invest in higher quality music. We should petition YouTube to allow for higher resolution audio. We shouldn't get used to lo-fi just being the standard. We should always be investing in hi-fi playback, even if we are committed to lo-fi aesthetics of music creation. So that's my soapbox about in defense of hi-fi. Hi-fi is worth it. And the last thing I'll say about hi-fi, you don't need one of those crazy audiophile rigs in order to appreciate good sound. For a few $100s, you could get a very decent turntable and put something together that has nice components. But try them out. Try to get something that sounds good. And if all you can afford is that basic turntable from Target, that's probably going to sound great too. The thing is when we listen to records, unless you have the whole crazy audiophile rig, it's probably going to sound better on Spotify through your car anyways. So you're investing in having vinyl because you want to be involved in the performance. You want to hear the crackles. You want to be a part of it. You want to take some time out of your day to flip a record and actually sit and listen. And that's awesome. So don't get caught up in thinking hi-fi matters that much, but I do think that it's cool and it's something that we should strive to, enhance in our lives. How can we get the crispest quality sound so that you can hear the three-dimensional nature of the music? If you haven't ever taken a chance to, go to a listening room or hear a really great sound system and you know somebody that has one, say, hey man, can I come by and just check out some records? It is worth it. If you've only ever heard music on your earbuds or on a Bluetooth speaker at the beach or somebody's car, and it's definitely worth it. Think about the movie theater and how cool that is with all the sound. So, for a musical demonstration of the day, motivic development. This was a huge idea for me. When I was in college, we had an assignment from one of my teachers, Dave Fusinski. And he said, your assignment this week is to spend 30 minutes a day playing one idea and expanding it gradually. So say that was my motif. I'm not going to do it for 30 minutes, but the idea is if you had just one simple thing and you can expand it gradually, then you'll start to develop that sense of storytelling, and you can take your time to develop a melody, a solo, a composition. So if you're a musician, think about this week just grabbing one little idea and seeing how many times you can put it through the motions, changing it, little variations. See where it goes. It's a pretty good discipline. You'd be amazed at how it improves your music. So this week, what is on the turntable after all? Townes Van Zandt. Now this is a great record. This is the eponymous Townes Van Zandt album. It was recorded at Bradley's Barn, and I was reading about Bradley's Barn. It was a really interesting studio outside of Nashville. In the late 1960s and the 70s, they made an amazing amount of records, and you can actually see some of the photos of the actual environment. It was genuinely a converted barn, and some extraordinary music came out of that. So this is Townes Van Zandt. This is an amazing record. You can check it out on Spotify, of course. This cover is a little bit orange, but my favorite part about the sticker here, it says, "We're trying our best." So even though it's orange, Fat Possum Records is, they want you to know that they're trying their best. So to wrap up, something that helped me this week was thinking about how you might be able to find a time to pick up your instrument for a short burst. Say you've got one idea. This week I was playing All of Me. Now, All of Me is in the key of C. So what I was doing was saying, okay, I'm going to play All of Me, and I'll grab my guitar. I'm just going to, no matter what key it is, I'm just going to pick up the guitar, throw my hand some random place, and see if I can play it. So what I'm thinking about is just those little moments that aren't a part of your practice session. You can check in and just pick up the instrument and see how you're doing with that concept. You might not have much time to practice. You might be really busy. But if you keep your guitar out on a stand or your trumpet someplace, you could have just your voice. Think about finding just a moment to check in with an idea that you happen to be developing. Maybe it's just a simple little major scale and you're just thinking, that might be enough. Just grab the guitar, play it in a few different places. And then go about your day. Put the guitar down. So short bursts of practice, memory recall, seeing if you can just grab something and challenge yourself for a minute or two. All right, that's it for me. This is Earth Tones Episode 4. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I want to remind you that we are a beautifully musical people on a fantastically musical planet. My name is Jake Pardee. Thank you for tuning in. Send me a message. Let me know what you think of the show so far. Please leave a review, subscribe, send it to your friend, and I will see you next week for Earth Tones Episode 5.